All right, and welcome back again to the Paisan Sports podcast presented by Elevation 5280 Sports, coming at you live during a Phillies game currently underway. Phillies are up 2-0 in the bottom of the sixth. Dante DePlacido joined, as always, by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So I got to ask, what's the deal with these torpedo bats? What analytics nerd was able to come up with this, and why does it seem to be working so well for the Yankees and not Alec Boehm? What's going on?
Yeah, isn't it crazy? I always think how crazy back to one day we'll remember the Phillies and what obviously every single good player was about and their style of play, and then we'll just remember that Alec Boehm participated in a home run derby, which is just crazy. Didn't make sense at all,
Dude,
but
I think that home run derby might have messed up his swing a bit. He has not been the same since that home run
well, he also
derby.
had an injury that was kind of swept under the rug, just like Bryson
True, but
Stott's injury last year
I
too.
think the
So,
home run
but
derby might have played a part. Uh, by the way, JT's at the plate. He's currently batting. I mean, I know we're only a few games in, but he's currently batting only .067 on the season. If he fails to get a hit here, that average will dip even lower.
yeah,
Um,
and some for some reason Rob Thompson still puts him in the cleanup role. I actually had that as a topic written down. But to get back to the torpedo bat,
and he just grounded out.
yeah, to get back to the torpedo bat thing, yeah, it's taken the league by storm. This is the first time I can remember in any sport something like this drastic that's happening especially this early in the season. It seemed like it was
Yeah, it
opening
happened
weekend,
right
and I mean
away.
I
Like
don't
the
know if I
first
would classify
period.
it as a controversy. I feel like some people are for it, some people are against it. There's always going to be people
Well,
that,
Dave
you know,
Portnoy is very actively against it, and it's like, yeah, of course, the
well, he's a
gigantic Red
Boston guy,
Sox
and obviously if
fan.
the Yankees are doing it, then he's going to be, it's just kind of like the teams that, I mean, no, I'll save that for later. I'll save that to later. I'm not going to keep crossing over different topics and stuff. But yeah, I just realized my mic wasn't plugged in. That's crazy. Um, But with the torpedo bats, the apparently some people had them exclusively last season too, or some version of them. So they've been around for a little bit of time. Obviously, they were kind of kept in close quarters, and really, I guess the Yankees were the only team utilizing them. I think the story is they had some MIT graduate that was an assistant for them, working around that developed that type of bat. That thought if you changed the barrel up and you made the sweet spot of the bat changed to more so where the hitters actually hit the ball the most and below the label, that it would work out. And obviously, it worked out for the Yankees. The Yankees also
Yeah,
have a lot
been
of
working out
talented
for him
players
big
that,
time. It's been
yeah,
working out for him big time, but also, I mean, Judge is just absolutely raking, and he's not even using a torpedo bat. So it's kind of
well,
one of
that's
those
the
things
thing.
where
It's
it's
all
like,
about a guy, for somebody like Jazz Chisholm that has hit only 20 plus home runs in one season that was combined last year between two different teams. A guy like that, you know what I mean? You'll see the extra pop inside the bat. But the Kyle Schwarbers, the Aaron Judges of the world, I don't really think it matters. And I think Kyle Schwarber actually came out and said that he's not interested in that bat at all. I know
and you
Bryce
know
is
what? I'm
interested.
glad he said that because he's off to a hot start this season. 3 home runs already. He had the RBI double tonight. However, he did strike out with the bases loaded. That wasn't very great. Or no, he was the one who came up last when there was 2 outs, but he did also strike out. But yeah, anybody who's watching this, we're currently watching this after the fact. We're currently live during the Phillies' second game against the Rockies, where they had the bases loaded, no outs, and then had 3 straight strikeouts. But hey, they're up 2-0. But yeah, I mean, guys, like that's the thing with the torpedo bats is I'm glad that it seems to be, for the most part, the hitters that need the torpedo bat are using the torpedo bat, and then the guys like Aaron Judge and Kyle Schwarber, who are very successful without it, are not going to switch up what they've been doing and try using it. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, it comes down to preference. There's a lot of people that have just been using a certain type of bat forever, and that's just the feel that they like. I mean, there's certain guys that wear batting gloves, and then there's the rare occasion that there's guys that don't wear batting gloves, like a Jorge Posada back in the day, or even Vlad Guerrero Sr., who used to not wear batting gloves. You know what I mean? It's all about the feel and the comfortability. And a lot of baseball players are superstitious. I feel like of any sport, that's like the most superstitious sport because I guess the belief of believing in like doing something the same just because of how routine they are, playing as many games as up to like half a year's worth of days. So for them. There's guys that won't even make the change or give it a try because they're so used to what has been working with them and they don't want to mess up their swing. You know what I mean? So, but it is interesting. A guy like Bryce Harper that's that talented is interested in the bat itself. I think it's funny that Alec Boehm was messing around with the bat, but I think people should, just try stuff out. I guess I don't know how often a player like thinks to themselves, maybe I need a different type of bat, or suggested by a hitting coach like Kevin Long would be like, hey, maybe if you use this bat instead of that bat, you'll have a better approach at the plate and be able to do this instead of that. So I don't know how often they analyze stuff like that or they have people doing that, but that's what it seems like the Yankees MIT graduate that came up with this did. So, I mean, like I said, it as much as like the Yankees, if this is like something that ends up getting outlawed for whatever reason, I mean, I don't see baseball having an issue with the torpedo bats because um I mean, it's making the game, I guess, more exciting. There was a couple years ago when they
Well,
used the juice baseballs, so they were already
yeah,
trying to introduce this into
they
the
use
game.
those
But the
in the
torpedo
Field
bats
of
now, I
Dreams
feel like, is
game.
like something that was created not with, like the league didn't create it itself. It was more so created by a team. So it's not like a cheating type thing, like with the whole controversy of the last time that happened in baseball was the whole Astros thing. But I could see other teams like pushing for this to be outlawed if their players don't use it. It's just not a benefit to them, especially with the Yankees making the World Series last year and being seen as one of the best teams in the league, especially with a weak American League and having arguably the best player in the league on their team. So anything to
Yeah,
outlaw them and water them down, I think people will do.
I think, and that's the thing too, is the MLB has been trying to get more offense implemented. And I think a big part of it isn't necessarily like, they then baseball in general just needs more offense. I think the pitchers have gotten so good over the past decade that because of that, offense really started to dip. I mean, you go back and you look at the 2000s and you look at this is something we talked about before, the numbers that Bobby Abreu used to put up, like batting 300, 400 plus OBP, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases, 100 ribbies, and he wouldn't even make the All-Star team because that just wasn't like as amazing as it's considered to be today because offense in general was just way up back then. But now the pitchers, I mean, back then I remember Ryan Madsen throwing 96 on the gun, and it was like, wow, this guy's got some serious heat. But now you have starters throwing 100. I mean, these pitchers nowadays, they're absolutely filthy. They're throwing
Yeah,
100
dude's
on the
even
gun. Like,
you got that one pitcher, I think he's a rookie, got drafted. He was a high first round draft pick last year. He's ambidextrous and does it like consistently.
mhm.
Like a
Yeah,
switch
these
pitcher,
pitchers
which
are
is
filthy,
crazy.
and then they're all
Like
speed
back in the
pitchers
day,
or
what was it
breaking
like?
pitchers are just
Like
straight filth as well.
back
So
in the day, it was
offensive
like a Aroldis Chapman. Like if you had a Aroldis Chapman, like that was, you know what I mean? That was
when
your
Aroldis
guy.
Chapman hit the scene, dude, like his heat was like, whoa.
Like
And
second to
now
none.
it's
Yeah.
just like it's almost like more of a regularity now.
You saw like
So
Randy back in the day. Randy obviously threw crazy heat, but Randy also, I mean, name another pitcher that had a frame like 6'10", built like a basketball player, throwing the
yeah.
pitches at you. You know what I mean?
But
So
anyway, getting to my point, as by the way, the Rockies just hit a solo home run to make it 2-1. But getting to my point is so because of how good these pitchers are now, offense is really taking a dip. the past decade or two. And the MLB, was trying to fix that by implementing more offense with larger bases, the ghost runner rule, a pitch clock, uh, all kinds of stuff. And what's funny is all the small little rules they were trying to implement might not end up having nearly the same impact as the torpedo bat. But that's also why I don't think the MLB is going to ban them, because more offense is what they've been looking for. So, but it's like everybody's been saying, either they're going to get banned or every team is going to start using them. We're still only a week into them, so we're still really yet to see what the result is, but I am curious to find out.
Yeah, it's just very unique because there's not really a comparison to any other sport where like a piece of equipment that is just a part of the game is like, by choice, like baseball in itself, like a football, they're not going to alter the way the NFL football looks, or, that would drastically impact the game of where the ball bounces and, how the ball is being able to be moved. Or basketball, if they switch like the basketball, or if they move the nets up or down, if they change the backboard. Or hockey, they made the goal wider, or the same with soccer, the goals wider, more narrow, or whatever. Like, this is something that's very unique because it's like a piece of equipment that,
Yeah.
the league, like I said, didn't create this. This was created by a team in the league. So that's why I think it's kind of like murky waters, where it's like cool in the beginning, but I could see it start for teams to push it for it to get outlawed in a way. But it's something
I
that's
think
very
at the
unique. We
very
haven't
least,
seen it.
the MLB will investigate these bats just to make sure they are up to code. Like everybody's saying, oh, well, the bats are legal because according to the rules, the barrel just has to be a certain length. It doesn't specify where it needs to be. But I think, like, at the very least, the MLB will investigate these bats to make sure
Yeah, that's
the
what I
the
thought. Like,
barrel
the best
is
thing.
the correct length,
Yeah, that's
because
what I thought.
they could have just moved the barrel down, but then also made it longer, so that
Well,
could have
what
been
was
the
it,
counter
George
argument. Well,
Brett?
no, we
Was it
just moved
George
the
Brett back in
barrel.
the
But
day? Was
what's
that
that?
George Brett back in the day who hit the home run, and then they saw his bat? I think his bat exploded or something, and then he came running out of the
Uh,
dugout. Was that George Brett? I think it was George
I
Brett.
don't know who it was, but I know
But,
what you're
like, they
talking
saw his
about.
batter and it had cork in it, so something like that. But maybe like I said, I think the best route to go with it is probably, like, they'll have regulations for the bat. But then again, like, will there be a counter in baseball to this? Like, will pitchers be
No,
allowed to
this
use foreign
is the
substances?
counter to how good pitchers are now. This is the counter. So I didn't really
Well,
think
dude, like, pitching is, like, the hardest. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's tough to say. Hitting's obviously, like, the rates of hitting, but, like, a pitcher, like, for how good a hitter in the MLB is, you know what I mean? You could get teed up real easily. I would argue that it's harder to pitch in the MLB than hit in the MLB.
uh, I would disagree. The hardest thing to do in all of sports is to hit a baseball. But anyway, in order to
I
segue,
real quickly, I would argue no average Joe, like an average Joe could get lucky and get a hit. No average Joe is ever throwing a ball or a pitch to
no, an average Joe could not get lucky and get a hit.
and so you
Absolutely
think an
not.
average Joe could get lucky and strike out an MLB hitter? There's no chance he would get teed off
I don't
every
no,
single
I don't think that would I don't think either could happen. I don't think either could
Yeah,
happen.
that's true. I guess they cancel each other out, so that is true.
But anyway,
Something
in
that was
order
random
to
MLB note that I thought was interesting. Remember when Ronald Acuna? So I feel like MLB years kind of got boggled up between like the World Series year for the Phillies in 2022 and then 2023, how that ended. Then 2024, I kind of confused the seasons, but now I got it set in my brain. So I believe it was 2023 when Ronald Acuna had that crazy season, right? It was the 40 plus home runs and 70 stolen bases. Because he was
uh
injured all of last season, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it was 2023. So remember when he was on pace for that stolen base record, and that random A's player was also on pace with
Are you
him?
talking
Had
about Esteury Ruiz?
Yeah, and how he
I
just
could
got
have
traded.
sworn
He just got
Esteury
traded to the
Ruiz's big
Dodgers.
season with stolen bases was last year. I could be wrong, but yeah, I just saw they traded him to the Dodgers. What the hell are the A's doing? It
Well,
makes First of all, it
they
doesn't
sent
even
him
make
to
that
the
much sense for
minors.
the Dodgers. He's not really going to see the field a whole lot. And if you're the A's, you don't have much good going for you, but you have this, great raw talent in the outfield in Esteury Ruiz, and you just ship him off to the Dodgers. It makes absolutely no sense. And speaking of the A's, did you know their press conference room currently, because they're playing at like some shitty minor league field, their press conference room currently is like this little shed next to the stadium.
Yeah.
It's atrocious. It's so bad. It's not even a shed actually. The wall is like tarp. It's not even an actual wall.
Yeah,
So
it's
they
like
would.
really unpleasing aesthetically to watch, any highlights or anything from the games from there. But the A's weren't using Ruiz. He actually got sent down to the minors, and then I guess
Oh
they
really?
dealed him.
I didn't know
But
that. As
the A's
Edmundo
actually, if you look at
Sosa
the
gets
A's
a little hate
stats
bit.
this year,
Dude, Sosa's looking good so far.
the A's are cranking a bunch of dingers this year. I mean, they got like a
Really?
couple dudes with like 2 to 3 home runs already, so they're playing actually pretty well. But my first
Boo.
thought when I saw the Dodgers make that trade, I'm just thinking like if they could have one thing added to their roster, maybe it's like a really good base runner, a situational base runner, and that's that guy. So I mean, they literally have every single thing that you could possibly have,
Okay,
and
Brent Rooker. He has 3, as well as 7 ribbies. Tyler Soderstrom. I did not realize they moved him to first base. He
yeah,
was
he's got
like
3 already.
he has 3. He was like their top prospect
Their
at
catcher
catcher.
is very underrated. Shane Lagliers, he's been cranking things
Shea
for years now.
Langoliers, he has 2. He's only batting 182 so far. And then the other Max Muncy, he has 1. I think it's funny. There's 2 Max Muncies. I was expecting and hoping to see Seth Brown on this list. I like him. He kind of reminds me a bit of Reese Hoskins, sort of. They moved him to left field. Okay, so they moved.
Yeah, but let's talk about
Wilson.
the Phillies. Let's not worry about the A's too much
Yeah,
here. The Phillies opening series, they obviously won the opening series. They won the first 2 games of the opening series. But one constant theme thus far this season between the 2 series is heading into tonight, they had what 2 um,
runs
runs
against starting
scored
pitching.
versus
Yeah,
starting pitching in like 23 innings, and then they have
they've
obviously
been
teed off
raking
versus
against
bullpens.
bullpens.
So, I mean, they've versed some talented pitchers, and Freeland's actually a good pitcher too for the Rockies.
Freeland, and look at the start of
Well,
this
so
game, they didn't look that great against Freeland as Rojas bunts and gets Sosa over to third with 1 out, bottom of the 7th. Yeah, the first few innings, they only had 1 good at bat against Freeland. Costi worked a 3-2 count, made him throw 7 pitches before hitting a hard liner into the outfield that was unfortunately right to Mickey Moniak. And the rest of the at bats, I mean, guys were grounding out, lining out, or flying out within 2 pitches. Freeland was cruising through the
yeah,
order. They put up
how did Mickey sneak his way onto the into Citizens Bank Park tonight? What happened with that?
uh
I saw the Angels released him. He didn't make the
I had
roster.
no idea the
Former number
Rockies
1
picked him
overall
up,
pick.
and then I turned on the game. They're going over the starting.
Yeah, it was the 9 hole too.
Yeah, they were going over the starting hitters for the Rockies, and I see Mickey Moniak. I had no idea. By the way, Trey Turner just lined a RBI single into the outfield, so it's now 3-1. But yeah, so that's now 5 runs against starting pitching. They've been raking against the bullpens. One guy who looks really good so far this season is Edmundo Sosa. He's off to a hot start this year. I think this
Well,
is
I feel like
now.
it just opens up the conversation again. It's like we talked about this last year and everybody wanted to shut it down, and then he just continually opens the door to the conversation of he needs more playing time. And you see now where he gets time between shortstop and second base. There's probably times where he'll split some time at third base with Alec Bohm when he gets the day off. I mean, they talked about even using him in the outfield last year. So if something drastic between, I don't think they would put him in center, but maybe one of the corner outfield positions, like if Costi were for some reason to go down and their Iron Man that played 162 games wasn't able to go, and they had to do something like drastic and implement something that's already within the roster instead of like going out and making a trade, they could do that, or they could bring up one of these minor league guys. But and Mundo Sosa just continues to open up the conversation that he needs to play more and possibly be a starter on this team. And I know the 2 spots that are pretty much open for competition are the outfield, even though Max Kepler has looked pretty good this year. And Brandon Marsh at times has looked good this year, besides a really slow opening day where he struck out, I think, 3 or 4 times. But the next day he came back with a home run and a double and I think a walk. So, he's battling through it. He's got to prove that he can hit left-handed pitching. His defense in center field wasn't as good as like everybody like thought it would be. In the corner outfield, I feel like Brandon Marsh.
Oh, that's gone, baby. Oh no, it's not.
All right, we need to chill with the live updates so we can stay on
I
track
thought
here. We
Harper
don't need
just
the live
ripped a
update every
two-run
single one.
homer, dude.
Uh,
That died out at the
But
track.
yeah, I feel like Edmundo Sosa, there's got to be able to find a spot, and it's just that having a guy like that on the team, you always need like a utility guy that can pretty much do anything. I mean, you saw how crucial Tommy Edmonds. I mean, look at like Tommy Edmond, his role with the St. Louis Cardinals, where he's kind of playing all over the place. They didn't even really know where to exactly put him. Sometimes he'd be in the outfield, sometimes he'd be in the infield, and then he was NL. The NL Championship Series MVP, I believe. So a guy like that can pay dividends to a championship level team. So, I mean, Edmundo Sosa, you saw how good he was in the first playoff series in 2022 versus the Cardinals, and he scored that one crucial run, and he filled in and made a couple big plays. So he's been doing it for a while
Yeah,
now.
I mean, listen, ever since we acquired this guy in 2022 at the deadline, he has been money for this team. He's continuing to do it. I definitely think this year there's a path for him to start even more games. I think, and by the way, this is yet another two-hit game for him so far this year. This is his one, two, three, four, his fourth game of the season so far, and he's had 2 hits in all of them.
It's
Um,
another big part of the equation too is where he does this in the lineup. Like he's always batting down in the lineup, and then he produces at the bottom of the lineup. Like the hit that he got on Monday at the home opener to really blow the doors open on the game. That double, that RBI double after Trey came in and pinch hit on his day off, which was a very interesting move from Rob Thompson because that's not something that you normally see from Rob Thompson. I forget who it was last year. I think it was either Bryce or Kyle Schwarber had a day off, and he was asked why in that big moment last year when they could have utilized one of those guys on their day off in a huge spot and he didn't use it. He said he wanted to give them the full day of rest, and this was a game that Trey Turner wasn't even cleared to play. By the Phillies, and then he comes in, draws the walk, and then Edmundo Sosa brings him home. So I thought that was an interesting move from Rob Thompson, an aggressive move from a guy that's usually laid back and relaxed, which is a good thing for a baseball team over the long stretch. But a lot of people think at times that Rob Thompson needs to have a little bit more urgency. So that was good to see him make a big time managerial move, even versus one of the more poor teams in the MLB, even though it's early to start the season, but one of the least talented teams in the MLB. But it's good practice and repetition and keeping the players on their toes and ready for any moment. So,
yeah, going back to what I was saying about Sosa though, is I think there's more of a pathway for him to start more games this season because I think, last year and the year before, when you're sitting guys like Stott against lefties, same thing with Marsh. More so with Stott because Marsh is just terrible against lefties, but more so with Stott. Stott should be playing every day. Blah blah blah. He shouldn't be sitting Stott just because he's playing against lefties. He should play every day, et cetera, et cetera. But now I think like Stott's been around enough now where it's like, okay, he's not a star player, and Sosa's really good. So I would not hate it one bit if Stott sits again. Like I was in the boat before of start Stott every day, but I would not hate it at all if anytime we face a lefty, Edmundo Sosa is our starting second baseman.
I don't know if it will come to that point, even much as an advocate I am for.
Not every single game, but a
Well, they
decent
showed
chunk.
Rob Thompson has showed that he will tinker with the lineup based off the handedness of the pitcher, where he
Yeah,
just
he did a lot of tinkering with
Trey
today's
came back
lineup,
into
and
the
I like
lineup
it.
today, and he was right back in the leadoff spot. So Thompson has shown to be able to do that. But the thing about Edmundo Sosa is he's like there's traits about him and to his game that make him one of the best players at that certain skill trait on the roster. So that will always open up the opportunity for him to play for the Phillies. I mean, he's probably top 3 base runners on the team. He's probably top 4 defenders on the team. So those two things in itself, and then he gets timely hits and he can bat for a very decent average. Like, we're not talking about a guy that comes in and is batting like 240, which for a reserve player is just good in itself. Like, we're talking about Edmundo Sosa that comes in and he's batting like 265, 270 ish usually. So that's like an added boost to a team. Like I said, where he hits on the lineup when he's batting down in the order, for him to come up and get those huge crucial hits. I mean, you saw what it parlayed into. He gets that big double the other day, and then Kyle Schwarber hits one over the fence right after. And it seems like this team's like a very momentum-based team, to where once the floodgates open, like they have tough time versus starting pitching to start the season. But once one guy tees off on a bullpen guy, I don't know if they're picking up on signs and really paying attention when that guy's up to bat and see what pitches the pitcher is throwing. But it seems like once one guy gets a hit, then everybody, kind of comes in unison. Like Max Kepler gets a home run the other day, and then Castellanos gets one right after.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, enough talk about the hitting. Let's talk about the starting pit, or not even just the starting pitching, the pitching from this team throughout the first week of the season. Because other than, of a typical rough Toyota RAV4th inning from Aaron Nola in his start, the pitching has been lights out so far this season.
Yeah, Jesus Luzardo, was as advertised. They actually gave him the ball for the second game of the season, which kind of shows. I don't know if that shows like the totem pole of the pitchers.
I heard it was Rob Thompson trying to switch up the handedness of the pitchers.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I think that's why the staff is so good, because you have Wheeler and Nola on the right side of the mound, and then you got Luzardo, Ranger, and Christopher Sanchez on the left side, which is
I
more
think
usually have more righties than lefties.
Sanchez. I think I said this on Twitter because somebody posted early predictions for the all MLB first and second teams. I think Christopher Sanchez is a dark horse for all MLB pitcher this year.
Well, I think Christopher Sanchez, he was actually the most bet on pitcher to win the NL Cy Young. I think we brought that up on the last podcast. But
Yeah.
I think Christopher Sanchez is what people thought Ranger Suarez was last season. Like, he's an actual consistent version of that. And it shows some people were kind of shocked when Christopher Sanchez got that extension, 4 years, 22 million, which is an extreme bargain for a pitcher like him. Like, think about
That's a
how good of a
steal.
deal
That's
that
how
is.
much we wait, 22 a year or 22 total?
No, it was like literally 4 years, like 22 million total. It was like last year. It was like
Total.
mid-season last year. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me
Jesus,
look up.
that is
That's off the top
a
of my head.
steal. I did not realize that's all we gave him.
I'm almost
We got
positive.
what in the Howie Roseman is that contract? My God.
Yeah, 2025 to 2030 pre-arbitration extension. Christopher
Wow.
Sanchez signed a 4-year, $22.5 million contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. 22.5 guaranteed.
That
So it's all
is
guaranteed.
that
Annual
is
salary of
nothing
less
for
than
him.
6 million a year.
And then they'll have in 2029 and 2030, they'll have club options each of those years for 14 and 15 million. And then, I
And they
mean,
have
if
him
he
locked up from what? He's
continues to pitch
28.
this well,
He's 28 years old now, so they'll have him locked up from like pretty much throughout his athletic scene
but yeah, I
prime.
mean, he's looking great. He'll be 32 and 29 and 33 in 2030. So, I mean, he could still very well be at the top of his game in those years. I mean, how old is Wheeler? At the same
Wheeler's like
age as what
30.
Sanchez would be in those years? I think
Yeah.
he currently is. He's 33 or 34, I
Well,
think.
Sanchez was
Let me
dominant
see.
at home last
But
year. So
yeah, I mean, a great start to the year.
Yeah, Sanchez was dominant at home last year, so I think that's why they gave him the
How old
mound
is
at home
Wheels?
for the home opener. So that was obviously huge, and I think that just shows. I think Christopher Sanchez is the second guy in the rotation now. I think that just is what it is. Aaron Nola has been around for forever, but the totem poles of the pitchers, I think it really is Wheeler, Sanchez, and I think come playoff time, that's the way that it will go. Especially balancing a right-handed guy and a left-handed guy, and then you can go back to Jesus Luzardo and Aaron Nola on the
Yeah,
back end of your staff for playoff series.
I just checked, by the way. Wheeler's currently 34. He'll be turning 35 on May 30th. So 32 is still, and 33 is still young for a pitcher potentially. But yeah, I mean,
You know,
he's
it was
looked
also
great on the mound.
crazy too. I saw somebody put together, I think it was MLB, put together a montage of every strikeout for Jesus Luzardo, and it was literally, I'm telling you, all 11 strikeouts were the exact same ending pitch, the exact same bottom right corner, exact same velocity, exact
Hmm.
same pitch strikeout. I'll actually, if I can find it to you, I'll send you the reel. I think MLB put it up, or it might have been like one of the baseball accounts, but it was the exact same pitch all 11 times. The last pitch to strike out the batter was the bottom right corner of the zone. I thought I was watching the same strikeout on repeat, and then I realized it was the full montage and it was the exact same pitch every single time. So, as impressive as that was, when I saw that, I was like, and thinking about the team that he was playing against, I was like, I don't know if he's going to be able to get over on a good team this many times with the exact same closing pitch of a a strikeout. But I mean, that's I guess what JT was dialing up, and that's he was succeeding with that pitch. So, but he looks really good, and I think that is
Yeah,
going to
he
be a
looks
huge move
good.
for them to
I
pay off.
mean,
That's going to be a
Sanchez.
move where everybody actually starts to recognize that they did do something in the offseason. I think Max Kepler can creep into
Well,
that
Kepler
conversation too.
also is off to a good start. I mean, the two offseason acquisitions that, I mean, that nobody really took any stock into the Phillies offseason, but the two acquisitions, Kepler and Jesus Luzardo, they're looking good so far. And the bullpen is looking strong as well. Wheeler, it looks like Wheeler. Luzardo looked great. Sanchez looked great.
A huge
Um,
X factor is Jose Alvarado coming back to like that same form, and I think actually
oh
us
yeah,
getting knocked out.
Jose, man, he looked good.
I think,
Um,
the Phillies getting knocked out early in the playoffs last year actually saved Jose's arm for him to actually, regain it. I feel like his arm was just getting tired after how much he had to pitch for the past 2 seasons with those deep playoff runs.
you
And
could be
especially,
right.
like, he was like a high leverage guy that they really leaned on when they didn't have a full, that's why it was so crazy when they traded Sir Anthony Dominguez, just thinking about, like, how crucial he was to those original playoff runs that they had a couple years back, and like how much they rode Sir Anthony and Jose Alvarado during those playoff runs.
I'm still upset that we didn't hold on to Carlos Estevez. But the final guy I wanted to mention is going down the list of the Phillies rotation. We're still yet to see Taiwan Walker, who will take the mound tomorrow. Now, it sounds like Ranger won't be out for too long, so hopefully we won't have to see much of Taiwan Walker. But as great as this pitching has been, hold your breath for tomorrow. I tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that it's going to be versus the Rockies. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Yeah, yeah. At least they get to roll them out
I was getting nervous that
against
they
the
were going to
fourth
stretch it
team.
out. They were going to throw Taiwan out there versus the Dodgers, and it'd just be an absolute smack fest out there. Thinking of
Yeah,
that for some reason, just sparked my mind just looking around the MLB. You know how Schwarber was batting leadoff, and everybody like around here is like, oh, why is he doing that? This, that, the other. Like he's a big guy. That's not like the silhouette of a player that usually bats leadoff. Yankees, like, obviously, catching the league by storm with the torpedo bats. I've realized they've been batting Paul Goldschmidt in the leadoff spot.
Well, Paul Goldschmidt's a guy who gets on base a lot,
And
so
he's a
that
high
makes
average guy too, but he's
yeah.
also, just like more so kind of like I guess he is a high average guy, which is like different than him. He was the 2022 MVP, and he was the team that we beat in the first playoff series too that year with the Cardinals in 2022 when he was the MVP of the National League. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Other teams Shohei bats lead off too, so we'll see how long Rob Thompson sticks with Trey Turner in the leadoff spot, but. I feel like I don't know how much I can, put on what's happened
He's
versus
looking good
first.
there. So I
The
mean,
true
Trey
test
Turner
is
is
when
also off
you
to a
start
good
the
start this
season,
year.
and you get these two teams that are probably bottom um, of the list of talented MLB teams, even though the Nationals are up and coming, but the Rockies really don't have too much going on. But your big
Yeah.
test is the Dodgers right around the corner, and that's when actually you can see stuff early in the season where you match up versus a team that's that good. And the Dodgers, the thing about them is they're as advertised; they're that good.
Yeah, no, certainly. Um, let's talk about before I give my meatballs of the week. Let's talk about a team that I was going over my predictions last week. I made a very
Yeah, I was
strong
actually gonna
prediction
call
for
you
this
out for it
team.
because I remember exactly what you said, and then,
But
like,
but here's the
I might
thing,
be
you
happy
don't
that
have
it's
to
like
call me
I
out for
see
it
it as
because
like a
I am
reversion.
thrilled to be wrong so far.
I
You
know,
know what I
but
mean?
that's what I'm
So
seeing it
far
as.
I'm
I'm just gonna,
wrong,
like,
and I'm
take it as,
very
like, a
happy
reverse
to be
jinx.
wrong because the Atlanta Braves, who I said would win 100 plus games and win the NL East,
Yeah, when you said 100
currently they're
plus
0 and
games,
6.
that's
They're
when you said
currently 0 and
100 plus
6.
games, that didn't even make
I'm
sense
so
to me.
glad to be wrong so far. They are 0 and 6. They look terrible so
Yeah, they're
far.
getting smacked, and it's a little bit scary too. Is the Padres look really good, and the Padres look like
Yeah.
I felt like the Padres were kind of fading a little bit because Manny Machado I feel like was kind of like not expiring. I don't know why like that word came to my brain, expiring like milk or something, but I felt like he was fading a little bit on his talent level based off his age. But I mean they're looking good. I feel like Xander Bogaerts is actually kind of living up to his contract a little bit. Luis Arias obviously makes plays. Fernando Tatis, and they're undefeated right now. So they might be another serious team in the NL that the Phillies have to deal with down the line.
Yeah, but listen, with the Padres being off to a hot start and the Braves being off to a horrid start, baseball's a very long season, and the first week is never really a true indicator
The
on what you're
craziest
going
part
to see the
about
rest of
the
the year.
Braves is
Oh,
remember.
Jordan Romano, that's another guy I forgot to mention. He's looking good. So that was the other acquisition was Jordan
Yeah,
Romano.
he has looked
He's
good.
currently
The
warming
entire
up in the pen as Matt Strom is in some trouble with 2-1, 2 outs.
I mean the entire bullpens look good so far. But another prediction that
Even
I
Jose
had.
Ruiz.
Not a prediction, I guess, or something that I suggested for the Phillies to do, but I'm glad that they didn't do was I said if they needed outfield help, they could have signed an all-star, and that all-star being Jerickson Profar. And Jerickson Profar got suspended for 80 games. And the craziest part about how turmoil the Brave season is Ronaldo Lopez, one of their starters, is going to be out multiple months at least. Now they got Jerickson Profar, their 3-year, $40+ million free agent contract from this year, when they already have one of the most talented players in baseball in the outfield down. And Ronald Acuna, Jerickson Profar is going to miss 80 games. And when he's reinstated and eligible after those 80 games he's going to miss, he's not eligible for the playoffs.
I did not see that part of it. You did just mention one of my meatballs of the week. I actually have 3 this week. Another meatball trio. I did a meatball trio once. I know I did that because I remember calling it a meatball trio. I don't remember what the trio actually was. But yeah, very unfortunate for them. Very funny and fortunate for us. So you love to see it. But let's get into the other 2 meatballs of the week. The first one. Uh, why did I immediately forget who the other one is? Okay, I'll start with the other one then. The first one actually is Freddie Freeman, who in a grandma like incident re-injured himself falling in the shower or falling getting into the shower and re-aggravated his injury. You never hear about that from men below the age of 80. especially not pro athletes. I think that's quite funny. Freddie Freeman, you're my second, technically, meatball of the week. And then my third meatball of the week. Why am I drawing? Oh, not really like a meatball of the week. And he's turned it around today, but I thought it was also kind of funny. A guy who I'm actually a pretty big fan of, Rafael Devers, off to one of the worst starts in MLB history, going 0 for 16, striking out 15 times in those 16 ABs.
I think it was.
But
I think you got to give him a little bit more credit. I think it was 19, 15 for 19 on strikeouts.
let me see. I had it
You
up.
know what's the craziest comparison stat I've ever seen?
I
They
think once you tell me, I'm going to remember. I was trying to think of it
It was the
earlier.
Tony Gwynn stat. Tony Gwynn had like
Yes,
600
yeah,
plus
I
at
saw
bats
that.
and struck out 15 times in a season, and Rafael Devers had 19 at bats and struck out 15 times.
Yeah, no, it was wait, 4, 8, 12, 4, 8, 12, 16, 9. Yeah, it was 19. Okay, yeah, 19 ABs. So I mean that's kind of even worse. 0 for 19.
And didn't
That's
we
your worst
both pick?
result for the season. And then
We both
15
picked.
strikeouts.
We
But
both
he's 2
picked
for 4
Boston.
today with a ribby and no strikeouts.
We both picked Boston to win the American League, didn't we?
That's also not off to a good start. What's the record? They're 1-4, but they're
Well, he
currently
got
leading
told.
the.
We were talking about the controversy between how the Phillies could also sign Alex Bregman because they were talking about the rumors of the third base not being locked down. The Red Sox ended up giving him a 3-year, $120 million contract, and then once they signed him, he's a really good third baseman defensively. It was suggested that he would be the third baseman because Rafael Devers. We went over the errors that Rafael Devers had in the field and like how he was like leading the league in errors and third baseman every single season. And then they told him right before the season started that Rafael Devers that he wasn't going to play third base. And I don't know if he's in his head because he's not playing in the field too, and he's just he's not going through his normal routine of being out in the field, or I don't know what's going on with it. But I feel like he's a guy that will turn around. I mean, baseball is like a sport where there's
Well,
guys, massive players that go through massive slumps and then they get out of it. So, but
yeah,
hopefully, I'd be down for Rafael Devers to slump all the way up to the trade deadline and then find his way onto the trade block. I'd be down for that.
that I would certainly
I
be
think the
down for
whole
that.
league would be down for that.
Rafi
But
Devers is one hell of a talent. But just checking in on the Red Sox, so they're currently up 3-0 in the bottom of the ninth against the Orioles. So they're about to likely improve to 2-4. Bregman has a base hit today. Rafi Devers 2-for-4 with a ribby. Trevor Story actually has a 3-hit game currently. That he really fell off since leaving. Speaking of the Rockies, he really fell off since leaving the Rockies. He has not had.
who's fell off more than like Trevor Story or Chris Bryant? Like Chris Bryant is like
Chris
prehistoric to
Bryant's
the
another
guys
one. You
he
know who's
was.
another big one is Tim Anderson. How Javi Baez, obviously another big guy that really
I
fell
mean, you
off.
could say Cody Bellinger. I didn't realize his
Cody
stats last year.
Bellinger,
Or
that's
like Cody
another one.
Bellinger when he was on the Dodgers was like. I mean, Trey, I guess, is in the starting to fade into that category a little bit too. Is he's not nearly the same player that he was
But
in his last stop. So
yeah,
there's a lot of
but
guys. There's like a
and
bunch
then
of there's guys around the league that are starting to carve out a huge name for themselves too, and there's like the changing of the guard. I don't know if you saw like the Pittsburgh Pirates roster, but like the offense that they have built around Paul Skeens is like embarrassing. Like it is crazy. They're rolling out. They're like still using Andrew McCutcheon at the age of 40 in like a primal like
he's
offensive
gonna end
role.
up leaving there, dude.
It doesn't even make
He's out
sense.
here doing GQ photo shoots with Livy. He's gonna end up leaving Pittsburgh. But real quick, before we transition out of baseball, I did want to say that I do like the young talent the Sox have. Jaron Doran, Tristan Casas, Connor Wong. They've added Bregman. I think they have a good young core, and then Garrett Crochet today ended up pitching 8 innings, only allowing 4 hits, 1 walk, no runs, and 8 strikeouts. But anyway,
Do you
Let's
think, real quickly before we get out of baseball, there was a couple gigantic contracts that were given out recently. We've seen a couple teams give out extensions to start the season. Do you think any of those extensions that were just given out will impact the Phillies roster at all? Because we have those the trio of free agents that we have with JT, Schwarber, and Ranger on the last years of their deals, but there's also guys like Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm that are younger guys that are looking for that big payday. We just saw Jackson Merrill was one of the guys for the Padres get a mega bag today. Garrett Crochet was another guy mentioned that just got a gigantic bag, and there was a couple other guys around the league. So do you think any of that will, like I said, we talked about the Christopher Sanchez contract not too long ago and how good of a price that they got that at. So do you see like any of those extensions, like, changing the way that the Phillies view things, or like the way that a player
I mean,
on the
I think
roster?
that's with any sport, it's as guys get new contracts, it changes the market.
I don't know if
Um,
it, the market gets changed a lot, but like when you have a Juan Soto, it's like a whole different story. But there's not everybody out there getting 15 million or 15-year contracts. Like that's not going to be a thing. Like that's like the
well,
Bryce Harper's, the
the
Manny
Phillies kind of
Machados, and
started that with the Harper contract almost.
I know, but I'm saying Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, they're all in that category of level of player.
Otani.
But yeah, but like there's not going to be other
I
guys.
mean,
I
yeah,
feel like
look,
the
these
baseball market, like I feel like guys actually get paid at a decent rate, and the market stays pretty much the same unless it's like a massive, massive talent to hit the market. Like Kyle Tucker, I think, is on the last year of his deal, so he might be like the next guy with Vlad Guerrero to get like a mega, mega bag. But there's not really anybody else besides those like two major guys I can think off the top of my head. I'd have to see who needs contracts, but those are two guys that would get paid like that. But not everybody, just because they're up for a contract, is going to get paid handsomely like that. Like Kyle
JT was
Schwarber,
Gossip
is
even for sure.
really good, but like
Oh,
Kyle
it's a
Schwarber, I feel
double.
like would be capped off at a certain number because he's like a one-tool player of like
I
him being
think,
that
listen,
big.
I think they're going to really prioritize keeping Schwarber. I think that's going to be a
Well,
big
what would the
priority. He's
contract for
been,
Kyle Schwarber look like? Like, I would probably give him like I would be down with 25 million per year, like 3 years.
I would,
And I
I
feel like
would, I would have said 2 or 3. Yeah, considering his age, like a 2 or 3 year deal, hopefully. But I mean, he's been phenomenal in his career as a Philly, just raking in home runs year after year. So far, doing it this year. By the way, Max Kepler, guy, we were talking about earlier, he finds himself in a big RBI spot here, one down, runners on second and third in the bottom of the eighth. But yeah. So I mean, we'll see. But let's get back to the tankathon because I'm a little fired up now. I'm hot. I'm hot. Okay, because the Sixers continuing to do a phenomenal job tanking. I mean, this is a tank masterpiece at this point. This is textbook tanking. You want to know how to tank? Look at the Sixers team. That's how you tank, okay? And they put themselves in a great position by tanking this well because now they only have 2 more wins than the Pelicans, which with about like 7 or 8 games to go, something like that in that ballpark. You know, if they do finish with a worse record than the Pelicans, that almost guarantees they keep their pick because the only way they would lose their pick in that scenario is if 3 teams outside of the top 4 work their way into the top 3. That's the only way they would end up actually losing their pick in that scenario. Or maybe not even actually. 3 teams would have to leapfrog and push them back. But if the other teams are leapfrogging, then the other teams are coming out of the top. I don't know, but their odds of keeping their pick would greatly improve
well, it's based
if
off the. I'm pretty sure it's based off the probability of like the top three are like almost guaranteed to land in some sequential order of the top five. So those other teams that would leapfrog that don't have the probability
right, it
of
would push
that
everything
push
else
them back.
back. Yeah. So what would need to happen for them to lose their pick in that sense is 3 teams outside the top 4 would have to leapfrog into the top 3, which is highly unlikely. They would almost likely keep their pick. So it's like, wow, this might happen. We might end up in the top 4, which also greatly improves the chance at the number 1 pick at Cooper Flag. But then the Pelicans, these sneaky fucks, these Pelicans, they shut down Zion and McCollum for the rest of the season. They said, whoa, 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 Sixers are tanking a little too well. We're starting to win games. Shut it down. And now it's not looking so great for the 76ers in terms of leapfrogging the Pelicans. But who knows? We might lose out. Can the
Yeah,
Pelicans
well,
go
I
the rest
mean,
of the year
if
without
you get
winning some
mad
more
at the
games? Who knows?
Pelicans if you get mad at the Pelicans for tanking, you should get mad at a third of the NBA because a third of the NBA all tanking right now.
We're
So,
the only ones allowed to tank. It's our
so
thing.
it's
We
a
did
it's
it
a
first. We
tankathon
did
fest.
it
And the
first.
funny part is, there's guys getting random opportunities, and sometimes you try and tank. What was it last year? That dude Malachi Flynn, like late into April,
Oh, yeah.
dropped like 55 points or something. So you never know what's going to happen. You're going to have a Quentin Grimes on your roster, just dropping absolute bombs and ruining
Quentin
your tank fest.
Grimes
So.
might end up getting shut down in these final couple weeks
Well, I
here.
think he got shut down the other day because of how well
Didn't
he's
he play like
playing. So.
last night or the night before?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interchangeable. They were kind of interchanging Maxi for a
When
while.
was
And
when
they
was the
just
last game? Was it last night? It was last night. Yeah, he played 36 minutes against the Knicks, dropping 26 points. Took the previous game off. If he
I
does
think
get
if it's
shut
reverse, like
down, he
if
finishes
it's
his season at
I feel like
60
the
points and 2
mentality is
threes,
get Quentin
and
Grimes
over
reps,
9%,
and if they're playing like
38%
it's
three.
if
Whew.
the Quentin Grimes is playing against a team like the Knicks, where they know they're not going to beat the Knicks, even though the Knicks are out or without Jalen Brunson right now, but the Knicks are just way better than the Sixers. So I think the mentality is play Quentin Grimes versus a good team like that, get him as many reps as possible. But if we're playing a team like the Pelicans or the Raptors, no, we're not going to put Quentin Grimes
Yeah.
out there to go ruin our
Anyway,
tank fest.
that's enough. That's kind of enough Sixers talk, really. I mean, what else is there to talk about
Well, I
besides?
feel like the NBA, a lot of people are criticizing the NBA and how it's a hard product to watch, but the teams that are actually successful and good in the NBA right now are creating an extremely good product. I don't know if you saw any glimpses or the box score or watched the game itself of the Nuggets Timberwolves game yesterday, but it was
I
absolutely
didn't. I didn't. Well, I saw Jokic drop the 60-point triple double, but lost. And I heard Russell Westbrook kind of screwed up that game. A 60-point, listen, I'm going to say this, a 60-point triple double, that is phenomenal. Um, but
he's
that's one
absolutely
hell of a performance.
ridiculous.
But what I will say is this is I didn't hear anything from the fan base about how many free throws Jokic attempted in that performance, which was 24. If it was Embiid who put, dude, Sosa continues again, man. Bases loaded, one out, lines an RBI double. Holy crap, this guy is good. That's why these bitches love Sosa. But if it was Embiid who put up that performance with 24 free throws, that's all
Yeah, but
anyone would
why
want.
is every time why does that have to be the conversation? Why do we have to stoop down?
Because they were that annoying about it for
Nah,
that many
you're just looking at
years.
like random fanboys on Twitter, bro. You're not looking at
No,
people that have
that's
voice.
a high majority of the NBA
All right.
fan
Well, every
base,
time
especially
that
the
Jokic
the
does
Jokic
everything, he's
fan
been the
base.
MVP 3 times now. He's possibly could be the MVP
I'm
again.
not saying anything
I don't
negative
know.
about Jokic. I'm not saying a single negative thing about Jokic. I'm saying a negative thing about the fans who want to constantly point out Embiid's free throw numbers, but then don't keep the same energy when Jokic goes off and
Well, I mean, that's the whole
puts up
like
a lot
top
of
up
free
the
throws.
hierarchy of the NBA. SGA shoots crazy amounts of free throws as well.
And no
So
one gives a shit. But when Embiid does it, it's a problem. So anyway, I'm a little fired up about that all over again. Um,
there's
but
no reason to. You're bringing it upon yourself. But yeah, like I said, the hierarchy of the NBA right now is actually it's crazy.
yeah,
Um,
a lot of top talent, a lot of great top talent in the league.
The Celtics might not actually be the team that makes it out of the East. The Cavs are extremely good this year. Um, the Bucks were looking good until Damian Lillard got hurt, so they had a chance until the blood clot thing with Damian Lillard. The Knicks, if they get back to full strength, could beat a team in the playoffs and make things tough. But at the end of the day, Tom Thibodeau still plays his guys way too long. You heard about Michael Bridges asking Thibodeau to tone down the starters' minutes a little bit.
What was that about Thibodeau?
Michael Bridges asked Thibodeau to tone down his the starters' minutes because he thought that they were playing them too much. but they're like playing like
That's
38 minutes
that's
a night.
weak. That's week.
A
That's week.
week for playing 38 minutes a night?
No,
A
I mean,
guy known for
I'm
playing his
saying
starters
to
like 40
tell
plus
a guy
minutes?
to tone it down because stars are playing 38 minutes a night. That's weak. I'm not playing 38 minutes. I mean, that's good, but yeah, they're telling him to tone it down. I mean, yeah, that's weak. But anyway, let's talk about some more weak sauce. Who says weak sauce anymore? Why did I just fucking say that? But let's
Yeah,
talk
that was
about some more
cringe.
weak stuff. 16 teams voted to ban the tush push, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I think
And
it's very telling that, they push back the voting till later on in May. So, they're gonna
but
get
I don't
more time
understand why they even pushed it back. I mean, they didn't get enough votes. That should. I
because the
mean, I
league
don't know
obviously
enough
wants
about the voting
the league
process, but to me, that should be a new
that's the
discussion.
league stepping in and doing what they want to do, and they're gonna make something happen that they believe so. They're gonna get more people to rally around. Nick Sirianni already has his support from certain people in the league. The funny part is the people that are speaking out against it the most, I mean, the Bills run the play as much, as
Yeah,
any other team in the league does, outside of the Eagles. The Eagles
and
also
The Packers, they did it in the playoff game against us with their tight end multiple
well,
times.
yeah, that's the Bills used to do that. The Ravens were doing that with Mark Andrews. There was a lot of teams doing it with their tight ends. The funny part is I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I don't know if like how big you are on college football. This is like one of the most historic
Not
games of
very
all
big.
time, though. When Reggie Bush pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone versus Notre Dame at the last second to win. And I was so mad at that time, and I was screaming in like 2004. I'm like, "Yo, why is Reggie Bush allowed to push Matt Leinart into the end zone?" Thinking it was like, never thinking that it would be implemented for my favorite team 20 years later, as one of their big plays. But at the end of the day, we don't have to spend too much time on the tush push. If it gets removed, it is what it is. I guess it turns into a folklore and a legend, and the Phillies or the Eagles get the credit of being the team that had a play that they made so unstoppable that it had to
Yeah,
get outlawed and banned.
that
But
is something I
real
can see a
quickly though,
lot.
real quickly, at the end of the day, we got a 2,000-yard rusher. We got a quarterback that accumulates like 35 to 40 plus total touchdowns a year. We have 2,000-yard level wide receivers, even though they didn't get it done last year, but usually on pace for 1,000 yards each. On the roster right now, which we'll get to, we have a very good tight end. We don't know if he's going to be around, but I mean, this offense has enough. If the tush push gets banned or outlawed, the offense isn't going to skip a beat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. And they'll still be listen, they still have Saquon Barkley, and they'll still be able to run a typical QB sneak, which they'll be very effective at. So, I mean, they don't need the tush push to be successful, and they'll prove a lot of doubters wrong by still being successful, even
I feel
without
like they
the
would,
tush push.
what would really replace the tush pushes. I feel like they would just start running a lot of read option um,
Yeah,
around the
they
goal.
could start doing that. Listen, here's my whole thoughts towards it. Is I agree with the fact that we don't need it. If it gets banned, it goes down as a folklore legend, right? It goes down in history as the unstoppable play the Eagles ran, and it was so unstoppable they had to ban it. So, I mean, I like all of that, and I like the idea of proving people wrong by still being successful even without it. I like all of that. I just can't get past the fact that they actually want to ban it. Like the idea of them wanting to ban it to me is such nonsense that it pisses me off that I can't even enjoy, the good that would come from it getting banned because I think it's
I
just
would
such
honestly, if
utter
I was an
nonsense they
opposing,
even want to ban it. I mean, come
yeah,
on.
I mean, the
You
thing is, I
can't
would probably,
stop it. You want to ban it just because you can't stop it, and you can't even say it's just an unstoppable,
well,
unfair
they're trying to
play
be
because the
the
other teams
conversation
that
is
run it a ton
they
don't
want to
run it
be
as effectively.
proactive.
You can't say it's an injury concern because nobody's
Well,
gotten hurt
that's where
during
they
it.
say
You
they
can
want to be
only bring up
proactive to
Chris
prevent an
Jones,
injury.
but he only got hurt during the tush push because he lined up horizontally. Like it was entirely on him for getting hurt during that play. So it just really annoys me that they're actually actively trying to ban it like this. It just really bothers me.
Yeah, a lot of people say they were trying to be proactive and prevent injury before it happens, and it doesn't look
It's
like a natural
nonsense.
football
Come
play.
on. What
But
type of nonsense is that? Now you're just making up shit to ban it because you can't stop it. That's the whole reason they want to ban it, is because they can't stop it. And that just pisses me off. It just
I
pisses
feel
me
like
off.
some people also don't wanna vote for it, not be there's also people that don't wanna vote against it because they don't want the right of if they, have something innovative from their team that comes up like that in a, rule change, then they won't have the support of the rest of the league, or they'll have their, like, rights violated by having, like, something that's, like, self-created, like, just get abolished like this, you know what I mean? So, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I feel like, it
But
did play a
let's
part in the, they scored a touchdown. The Rams game, I don't think they used it. They scored the first touchdown in the Super Bowl after the Jahan Dotson, what we thought was a touchdown. They scored a tush push on that first touchdown of the Super Bowl. They obviously scored it in the NFC Championship when Jalen and Saquon Barkley both had 3 touchdowns in the game, and that was the famous where Washington with Frankie Louvu jumped off sides so many times over the line of scrimmage that they said that they were about to award a touchdown. So I don't know if that had to do anything with it. But yeah, for the coaches that are coming out and vocally voicing their frustrations about it, I mean, I feel like they're just kind of nitpicking, and it's very
they're
interesting that
they're
the Bills
soft
like
crybabies is what they are.
it's an interesting thing because you would think they're like a championship level team, and maybe that would be a team that the Eagles could see in a big moment like that, in like a Super Bowl. But the Bills haven't been able to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs yet, so I feel like they're salty and they're just trying to find things to post their blame of why they can't get over their own struggles. So
Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, let's talk about another rule that has me pissed off. And this one I didn't even see about on social media. I just heard my cousin mention it to me. But I hear the touchback, or maybe I did see it on social media. I think I did. But I hear the touchback is now to the 35-yard line.
yeah, the touchback is the
What
35.
are we doing?
That's pretty
What
crazy
are
to me.
we doing? I mean,
Yeah,
come
that
on. It
I
used to be the 20, then it got moved to the 25. And at first I was like, okay, I don't hate that. Some more offense. Okay. I'm a defensive guy, but I don't hate it. And then it got moved to the 30. And I was like, all right, this is too much
the
now. This is
craziest
too
part
much.
about it
And now
was
the 35? The 35?
The
Come on,
craziest
dude.
part about it was, like, it was, like, almost I think it was, like, close to a unanimous, vote, like, there was, like everybody was in favor of it, like, which I think is pretty
It makes
stunning
no
in
sense to me.
itself,
And
so
here's the thing, too. Here's what really makes no sense to me is when the NFL made their rule change. Well, with all the NFL's rule changes for the kickoffs in recent years, it's all been about limiting how many times teams actually return out of the end zone. Right. That's why they moved it to begin with. They'll say, well, if you don't return it, you get the ball at the 25. If you don't return, you get the ball at the 30. Whoa. Right. They changed the way the kickoff works, so there's less contact. But here's the problem. When you move it back too much now to the 35, right? Now teams are not going to want to kick touchbacks. They're going to want to kick it
well,
into
no,
when
I think you're misinterpreting it a little bit. They incentivize it so that teams kick it into the field of play because you still have to kick it into
but
the
that's
target.
what no, but that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Now you're incentivizing teams to kick it into the field of play, which would mean the return team is actually going to return the ball, but which I thought they were trying to limit to that. That was the whole reason
No,
they
it wasn't
changed
that
everything to
they
begin
weren't
with.
they were just trying to make the play safer, so that's why they limited the
Well,
distance
no,
and
that's why they
everything.
originally moved it to the 25, is because they were trying to limit the amount of returns. Because I said, well, if you don't return, you get the ball to the 25. That's what they were originally doing. I don't think they know what they're doing anymore. I don't know. All I know is I really hope like 9 times out of 10 they kick it into the field of play, because I don't want to start seeing drives that start at the 35 consistently. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, that is I mean, it's gonna be definitely
Especially
something.
imagine late in the game. Imagine the Eagles are up by a field goal. There's a minute 20 left. The other team has one timeout. And
You
the Eagles
basically
go to
need
kick off,
30.
it goes into the end zone, and then the other team starts the drive at the 35. It's like, okay, this game's likely going to overtime. You
You
know?
basically need you need 30 yards if, like, a team scores a
Yeah.
touchdown under 2 minutes and you
You just
only
need
need
a
30
few first.
yards.
You just need like 3 first downs and you're good. I
That's
mean,
like an
like, come
extra
on.
that's like the 35 off, like, a team where you're, like, in a comeback scenario late in the game. Getting the ball at the 35 is almost like a saved timeout in a way because, like, it, like, saves you only having to, like it, like, takes a play off the board that you would need, like, a big play to get in a
Yeah,
field goal opportunity. Like, you only need 2,
it's way too
medium
good of
chunk
starting
plays to,
field
like, get
position.
yourself in a position. What do you think about the regular season rules getting changed,
Oh, I
to
love
the
it.
playoff rules with both teams
I
getting the
love it.
ball? Yeah,
I
I'm a
love it.
fan of it. They didn't change the time, so it's still only 10 minutes. So, I mean, there's probably still a chance that
I
in
think
regular season that the clock will run out. The last time that I remember a playoff game overtime like exceeding the clock limit, when McCall Hardman caught the ball, that was with like 4 seconds left in the first overtime, right?
I don't know
There was, like,
exactly what
very limited time,
the
but before that, I remember, when, the Ravens beat the, Broncos in 2013 on their Super Bowl run, and when they ended up winning the Super Bowl, I remember that game ended up going into
it was
double
weird.
overtime, a full 15-minute overtime, and Justin Tucker kicked the game-winning field goal with, like, 9 minutes left in the second overtime of the playoff game, so that was, like, 70 minutes of NFL time played, which is, imagine through a playoff run, you play 70 minutes, and then you got to turn around the next week and go play Tom Brady. That's just crazy.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I forget now. By the way, the Phillies just won. Um,
We're talking
but
about the new playoff rule or the new
oh right,
overtime.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, what somebody was mentioning, which like I agree with, is if the game if overtime ends and it's still tied, you don't have a winner yet. Instead of it ending in a tie, they should do like a field goal off between the two kickers. You know, like just have him kick 50 yarders until someone misses, and then that's how you determine the winner.
I like
I
that, but then again, like I don't like that. There's like something that like can't tell me a game could end on the result of that being like a thing, but I do like
But
that.
then you should have scored in overtime. You know, if you don't like that you lost because the other team's kicker made a 50 yarder and you didn't, then you should have scored in overtime.
Well,
It's
what if
like it's
they
10 minutes
would be a
overtime.
huge would be a huge rule to implement that could actually make things interesting and like push the thing along, and it might actually end the results of games is like in overtime after you score, since both teams touch it, you have to go for two. Kind of like the college rule after you score, like once it gets into a certain overtime in college, you have to start going for two after you score.
Hmm.
I feel like that would be a good implementing
I
because
think I think anything other than the games ending in a tie
Yeah, I'm
is
not a big
ideal.
fan because there's no other sport that it ends in a tie. I mean, I guess hockey you get credited with the tie, like based off that, but they still had the end result. You pick up playoff points for it. Soccer ends in ties, but yeah, soccer. So, but no other sport ends in a tie. I mean, MMA sometimes ends in a tie. It's a very rare occasion, and that's a very
I didn't
disappointing
even know that. When does
result.
MMA ever end in a tie? What's the
There's been
scenario
like
there?
there was a weight class 205 had a title fight that ended in a tie. The 205 had a vacant belt when John Jones left, and they literally had a guy win the belt, had to vacate it because he got injured. Another guy won the belt, had to vacate it because he got injured, and then the vacant belt got fought for by two contenders into a tie. So the belt just literally just couldn't be retained by anybody.
Interesting.
And there's been
That's
other
very
title fights. There was a 125 title fight between two guys that fought 4 times within like 2 years with each other. 4 title fights versus each other, and that one of those fights ended in a tie as well. So
huh.
it's pretty crazy though. It's definitely a wild thing. The split decisions are also wild in MMA, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of ties in any sport. I feel like you have to, especially like a title fight. Imagine a title fight like you train all this time for a title fight as a fighter, and it ends in a tie. And it's like, a fight is very like subjective to
Well,
like
I saw
uh,
something today on Twitter. There was an MMA fight. It was some sort of tournament thing, and apparently the one fighter just needed to not get knocked out in order to advance, and the other
that's
fighter
probably the PFL
needed
because like the PFL is
a
like baseball
knockout.
points.
And so when the fight started, the guy who just needed to not get knocked out, or no, it needed he needed to not, yeah, he needed to not lose via ref stoppage. So when the fight started, he just immediately tapped out. And the guy who needed the knockout victory or whatever he needed, he immediately tried to like actually fight him as a result of that. And the ref had to like hold him back,
Yeah, that's
kind
pretty
of
weak. But
funny.
that's like
That is
playing
weak. I mean, whatever
that's
happened
like
in the
playing
spirit of
so far
competition?
into like the rule book, like and like there's people that
Whatever happened to the spirit of competition? I mean, come on, what are we doing
yeah,
here?
yeah, but that's what people do. But
What are you
there
gonna
was some
do?
interesting comments that Nick Sirianni made. There's the owners meeting that obviously all these things are getting all these rule changes are getting voted on, and all the owners. Did you see that Nick Sirianni was the only coach wearing shorts in the coach picture?
I did see that. I don't
That was
understand
pretty funny.
why
I
so
just
many
thought that was
people
funny.
go
That's just such a Nick
crazy.
Sirianni thing. But he also made comments when asked about Dallas Goddard, and he was kind of, I'm not gonna like paraphrase him exactly or anything, but basically the gist of what he said was because he was kind of like talking about Dallas Goddard. He mentioned them with the likes of like bringing up names like C.J. Gardner Johnson of other players that have already moved on and are not Eagles anymore, and mentioned his name along with those guys, and kind of was talking like the past tense, like Dallas Goddard. Um, there's a good chance he's not on this team. And I think if they actually make a move um, before June, I think they lose a bunch of cap. So they're gonna have to wait a little bit of time. I think they lose like a significant amount of cap if they do it at a certain date. So this could drag out for some time. There's also reports that if they don't find anything out there, they could come back to a resolution with Dallas Goddard. Um, it's just a weird situation with Dallas Goedert. Has been a really talented, good player for the Eagles, an extremely good blocker and a good pass catcher. It's just his availability is not always there. The guys they have on the roster now, I don't see a starting tight end, but there is some talent in the tight end room. Grant Calcaterra can't block. He made one really good block in the Super Bowl versus George Karlaftis on the dagger play to Devontae Smith from Jalen Hurts. But outside of that, he does not have a good tape of blocking in his career, even though he's improving a little bit. I still don't think he's a number one tight end. So I don't know the direction that they would go. Maybe they target one in the draft. But as time goes on, it kind of seems like they're kind of waiting with Dallas Goddard just based off the stipulation of the money that needs to get moved. But it looks like he's probably not going to be an Eagle.
Yeah, no, I think he's on his way out. I don't hate it. And they could always add a tight end in the draft. I was looking at a mock draft this morning that did not feature Tyler Warren in the first round. I think Tyler
I,
Warren
I,
is
I
going to
don't know
go in the first round,
what
but if he
mock draft
does
you're
end
looking
up
at, but
falling to 32, if you're the Eagles, I think you take him at 32 and you move on from Dallas Goddard.
yeah, like I said last year, as great a production that we got from the cornerbacks that we got in the top of the draft, and that's probably the impact longevity wise that could help the Eagles the most and what they did in the rookie seasons. I mean, as much as everybody was advocating for Barack Bowers to be the pick, I mean that probably wouldn't have been a bad draft pick itself either,
That would
with
not have been bad at all. Yeah, I mean,
how good of a player
I
that
don't
he
know if they
already
would have went
is.
on to win the Super Bowl, with the
But
impact
you got
that.
to 12. I mean, he's already the best tight end in the league.
Mm, but I mean, imagine how different the defense would have looked without having three shutdown
I know.
corners.
I'm not comparing it in that way. I'm just saying, like, if they did go like a splash play like that, it could have still worked out. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
but
I get
but
that.
maybe they see like a Brock Bowers in this draft. I mean, Tyler Warren. I mean, Brock Bowers fell to what 13, and everybody knew how good Brock Bowers was. I mean, there was rumors of him going fifth to the Chargers last year, and that didn't obviously happen. So, I don't think there's any chance Tyler Warren's going to fall to 32. I don't even see Colston Loveland passing like pick 20, but If a guy like that does end up falling down the draft board, they need to make it happen. But I don't see Howie trading out of this pick either, because with all those guys that they lost in the offseason, I think the value of having a guy on a first round pick contract with 5-year control is just too valuable to the Eagles to pass up on. And they need to actually add talent to the roster. I don't know if they did this stuff because they say they want to save as much money, and it does make sense to save as much money with what they had to pay coming up, but also they didn't have like a glaring need or hole on the roster. So I don't know if they like got rid of guys just to open up avenues to add from the outside to the roster and open up starting positions for other guys. But that's a possibility, because I mean, we were talking about it before. I said I thought safety, when they had Reed and CJ on the roster, could be a position of need if you're just looking at the guys that they had, because Reed Blankenship is just a little bit unathletic in a way, just speed wise. So I thought they could just upgrade that, but obviously Reed's a part of their long term thing, and now they need another safety to pair with Reed. So
Yeah. I still have confidence in Sidney Brown. I still like Sidney Brown a lot. Or even the other guy, what's his name? Lewis Klein.
Lewis
Um,
Seen, I mean, it would be
Scene.
great.
Scene, that's it. Yeah.
It would be great for Lewis Seen to actually turn into something, but I just can't rely on that. So I really
I have a lot more confidence in Sidney Brown.
The thing is,
Um,
though, like when you were looking at the safeties in the draft, it's not like, oh, I just want this guy because they have an open hole at safety. Like, I actually really like these prospects at safety, like the South Carolina Eben Wari, and I really like the kid from Georgia as well, Malachi Starks. So I feel like those two guys can really add to the roster, and they could even address safety in the second or third round too. There's still good players that are going to be around there as well.
yeah. So we're gonna dive deeper into the NFL draft next week, as we will be much more nearing the date at that point. And I think by then we haven't really, over the past couple of weeks, we haven't really heard any stirrings about the draft or any rumors. But I think by next week's podcast we'll know some stuff.
We brought up that stat about how there has been a trade for like the first time like leading up to the draft in this long, and it's still there has been no trade in
We've got to get something by next week. We've got to
every
get.
all 32 teams hold their first round pick. Like, how many years can you say that? That is pretty crazy to me.
Wait,
But
wait. All 32 teams have their first round pick?
yeah,
Really?
that's like the first time in a very long time.
Yeah. I would have put money that on it that has never happened actually. So, wow, that's
The Dolphins
shocking.
lost their first round pick a couple years ago. The Eagles had 2 first round picks. There's been other teams that have first round picks. There's going to be in years coming up with teams having first round picks from based off of other trades and stuff. But yeah, this is the first time in quite some time. So, but that's maybe we'll see a mega bomb right before the draft. I have a weird feeling someone's gonna like Travis Hunter is gonna not fall, but like someone's gonna make a massive offer to come up and get Travis Hunter, like a team that's already established, and then add Travis Hunter to their team, and things are like I'd be mad if like a team like the 49ers came up. I could honestly see the Cowboys coming up to trade up for Travis Hunter. I could see that happening.
I think the Cowboys, if they're going to trade up to get anybody, I think it would be Ashton Genty. I think that's the guy they want. I hope they don't get him.
I think he's going to the Raiders at 6.
I would like to see him with the Raiders. By the way, Ashton Genty, if you're picking in fantasy in the first round, that's the guy you want.
Yeah, it's not going to be a bad draft pick. I remember when Todd Gurley was a rookie, I drafted him and Melvin Gordon had 0 touchdowns, and I kept him on the roster. And then I drafted Todd Gurley, and he sat out for the first 4 games of the season because he was recovering from the torn ACL. So I cut him because I needed a roster spot, and then he rushed for 1,200 yards in 12 games and scored like 10 plus touchdowns and was like the rookie.
Talk about players. We were talking earlier about baseball players that fell off. I mean, you know, mainly
Todd
due
Gurley
to
was
injury.
retired by the age of like 28, which was crazy.
Yeah,
He
I
was like
mean,
barely over the age of 30.
he had an insane fall off. Which is a shame. He was really good at his peak, but hey, what are you gonna do? Um, I
But
think
yeah,
that's all the topics. My laptop is dying.
yeah,
Is
that will
there
wrap it up for
anything?
episode 92. So, in the beginning of what, April? So, the beginning of June, we'll be embarking on episode 100 of the Paisan Sports podcast,
Wow.
which is crazy. But
Yeah.
thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be in New Orleans this weekend. So, I'll be celebrating the Eagles' Super Bowl victory in the spot a couple months after the fact. But yeah, I'll let you guys know how that trip went. We'll talk about the Phillies and give an update how their week went. We'll possibly have the last rumblings of the Sixers season and where they end up in the standings. And if the Eagles make a move, maybe the Eagles will be the first team to make a massive trade in the draft, which would be cool. That would make things stir things up around here and make things very interesting. But thank you guys for tuning in to episode 92 of the Paisan Sports Podcast, and we'll see you at the beginning of next week.